RC Command leads the way. Nick here with something a little different we're going to do today. I've been very blessed to meet some incredible people throughout this journey of RC walk bouncing and RC walk bouncer racing. One of those people that kind of stands out the most, though, is a gentleman named Sam Dube. He's actually joining me today. We're going to do something a little different that we haven't done at RC Command before, and do a little interview, a little walk around, an introduction to his new buggy that he is running this year, and we're going to do a little Q&A and see, just pick his brain and see, y'all know how I feel about RC walk bouncing. Let's see what our drivers actually think about stuff. So, for right now, Sam, can you give us a quick rundown of your new buggy and kind of a walk around and tell us a little bit about it?
What's up, guys? Dube from RC Faboratories. I'm bringing you my build breakdown for my newest chassis for this season. I went back leading arm. First buggy I tried it with was my Outlaw Buggy last year. Loved it, big fan of it. The only difference I changed up between the two is this one I'm running 120 mil shocks versus the 90s I think that were on Buck Wild. Now with that, I had to bring my motor and everything, set it back in the chassis just so I could get my up travel to clear without having stuff hit and things like that. Big fan of leading arm. Allows you to hit stuff just a lot harder and just really kind of hover over some of the stuff that I find would kind of fetch you up and give you some trouble, ledges, things like that. Another thing I did new on this chassis was bump stops. I was watching a lot of the RC rock bouncing over in Italy. A lot of those guys are just ahead of the game, hydraulic steering, bump stops, things like that. So I really wanted to try it this year. Unfortunately, the ones I was going to buy, he couldn't get them to me quick enough, so I had to kind of create my own. Not the greatest, but hey, it works. Super easy. If any of you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message. Just simple, real easy build, but it works. So I'm gonna stick with it and go from there. So my transmission and transfer case, I'm running a TF2 single speed with the hammer transfer case. Just allows me to put my motor up front where it should be. Nice, keeps the weight up front for climbing. And then the transfer case nice and down low, gives me a good direction for my drive shafts. I don't have to go on any crazy angles, especially with this buggy having so much travel. You want to keep your pinion and stuff like that pointing, as straight as you can. The other issue I was having, not really issue, just minor failures, I was shearing the output shafts of the output gear. So RC four-wheel drive, it's all one. It's all lathed together, it's all one piece. So what I was able to do was actually take the gear out, machine out the shafts, and put in my own shaft with a keyway. And so now if chances I break either the pin or the shaft, it's quick enough, you can do it right in the trail. You're not going home carrying your buggy or out of the race. So that was one thing I kind of changed. Other than that, everything else on the buggy has pretty much been the same parts I've used for the last 3-4 years. I build a new chassis every winter, normally. This one here is probably by far my favorite so far. I've called this one Never Satisfied, just because I'm usually never satisfied. But the axles are steel housing, boom racing AR60, dressed fully with all Vanquish. So the only thing that's not vanquish is the housing, and it's steel, not aluminum, it's steel. So these got some good weight to them. Keep it down low. I know a lot of guys are talking wheel weights, things like that. If you're running any rig with high wheel speed, a lot of torque, you want to stay away from that shit. Get your weight, place it in your buggy so it'll help you. No point in adding weight to areas that's just going to break stuff and frustrate you. So that was kind of my plan when I built these axles. I wanted something real heavy. I run tube, I don't run solid, so I'm able to keep my chassis a little bit lighter, so therefore I can run a little bit heavier parts. Wheels are just kind of like a cheap beadlock from eBay, nothing special. Tires, I'm running cut TSLs, and then I got some mudslingers I'm going to try out this year in the back, so, you know, see how they do. They look pretty meaty, so they should hold up quite well. I'm running 2 springs on this one, something I've not really done before. So my spring coilover side, I'm running a 10 weight, fill it up about halfway with oil, just to give it a nice hard dampen at the first initial hit, and then the rest of the shock travels pretty plush. And then in the bypasses, I'm running 30 weight filled right up, so it gives it a nice soft rebound, nice slow rebound, but also you're allowed to hit stuff a lot harder, and you're not going to have the buggy topple over backwards or anything like that. It's going to, you know, the axle's going to take more of the work, and then your shocks are just going to be able to kind of cover that and make it nice and smooth. My servo, I'm running one of the Savox, I think it's a 1230. And it's, you know, I was buying $60 servos and blowing them out every second weekend, so I just bit the bullet and bought a decent one, and it's been in there for a while now. Running the Rock 412 3100 kVA censored with the MMP. Little old style. I know they got the X and the micro out now. I've just never had any issues with mine, so no need to really go out and buy that for no reason. Maybe when this one craps out, but for now it works perfect. Still fully programmable. Hook it up to the computer, set all your parameters, power curve, torque curve, all that stuff. I mean, it's crazy what you can do with these things. So yeah, this is my new buggy for this season. Definitely going to be getting out there and doing some competitions around here in Eastern Canada. Also got a truck full of fellas that I think we're going to try and get down to the New Hampshire mud run. So it should be a blast to actually throw it in some competition with some different drivers and see how it stacks up. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this build.
That's really good stuff, Sam. That buggy is mean looking, and the Warren, New Hampshire Mountain Mud Run, what you're talking about here, and to fill those of you in that don't know what that is an event that happens twice a year at Mountain Mud Run Park in Warren, New Hampshire. Last year, I had the privilege of going down and watching the Bouncers race. Great time. I met Joe Pierce, Bobby Tanner, all the greats, Travis Lovett. Linked up with Joe, and he actually asked me to build him a replica buggy of the main Maniac buggy. So we got that done. So he's going to be racing. Actually, his son is going to be racing that in the King of the Mountain race that we're going to have at Mountain Mud Run. So what I was building up to is King of the Mountain RC bouncer race at Mountain Mud Run here in 2019. So you coming, Sam, is actually making it a world event, which is pretty crazy, And you spoke about Italy and stuff like that, and man, what a privilege it would be to have any of those guys come over and race any of our races. or some of us going over to Italy and racing in their races. That would be pretty cool too. So, all right, let's get into some Q&A, Sam. I have a lot of questions for a fellow bouncer fanatic. Let's nerd out and ask some legit questions that range from newbie to, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So with that said, let me ask you this. Talk to me about how you got started in building your own chassis. Like, what prompted you to say an axial bomber or a Wraith or a Yeti or whatever is not sufficient for me, and I want something specific. Break that down for us.
I personally, when I first started building chassis, it was a little bit, I wouldn't say easier, but it just flowed a little bit easier trying to replicate something that's already been built versus, creating my own lines, things like that. But that comes with building. So I'd say probably by my second or third chassis, I went and built my own designs. I go about it my own way. Kind of have like a pre-set idea of what I want to go with, and then the chassis lines just kind of flow around that. And that's kind of how I go about chassis in terms of building them for myself.
That's good stuff, Sam. So as far as the last two chassis go, you went leading arm. Why? Why leading arm? We saw TC start the 2018 series with Stand Back. That had leading arms. He raced that, 3 times and then built Hellbent. This year, Larry Krogh is running a leading arm suspension in his new buggy. That thing is amazing. I saw that in Texas, and then recently at Windrock. So why leading arm? What's so great about it?
Leading arm, great question. So the first chassis I built was Buck Wild that I used leading arm. The shocks I ran were 95 mil, I think, or similar. So they were a little small. I just wasn't able to get as much travel out of the chassis just with my motor geometry and things like that. So this one where I went 120 mil shocks and leading arm again, had to bring a lot of the stuff back. Big fan of leading arm, just allows you to hit stuff way harder, I find, in my opinion, and not really have the same reaction that you would as a shock on axle buggy would. Most of you know, or if you don't, wherever, if you move, if you have a 20 mil shock and you mount it on your axle only moves 20 mil. Well, if you move that 20 mil halfway back on the trailing arm, now you have a 40 mil axle travel relative to your shock. So it allows you to get a lot more travel out of a same size shock. The other side of that is when your axle is hitting bumps or ledges or things like that, your shock's not working as hard as it would be if it was mounted to the axle. So that's kind of another thing I've noticed. But for me, it's most likely going to be on most of my buggies, especially my race buggies that I build. I just an overall fan of it. I really like it.
Well, that's good to know, Sam. You speak with a lot of confidence regarding leading arm. You always have. So, hey, you never know. You may just talk me into a forward mounted motor trailing arm buggy one day. Maybe we can do a little collabo. Moving on here, talk to me about racing in your area. I was very thankful to be a part of the Texas RC Rock Racing Series when we got that started up down in San Antonio. I think they have 3 races that they've got under their belt now, and the final of the first series is coming up next month or so, I believe. But anyway, I am now a part of the National Rock Racing Association. I run the RC Rock Bouncer class, and it has been a blast. So, tell me about what it's like up there, and please share anything that you might think that we can use down here in the states to make our racing better.
Races, yeah. So I run an event around here, Nova Scotia Tough Truck Challenge. We have everything. We got guys show up with 1.5 wheel scalers. We got 1.9 truggies, 2.2 bouncers. I also throw in an unlimited hill climb, which we've seen guys show up with X Maxes with paddles. And yeah, you'd think that's crazy, but you know, some buggies that we have with two wheels show out a lot better than some of them big hammer down rigs. So it really all depends kind of what part of the crawling or bouncing or trail bouncers that you want to fall into in terms of what you race. I offer it for everybody. Just because I can't really make a specific rock bouncer event. We just don't have a lot of guys that run them. So we normally do 2 courses, one for the 1.9, one for the 2.2s. Then we do a hill climb for both. And then usually at the end of the day, everyone's got some batteries left over. So we go out and we build an unlimited hill. And it's pretty much just a vert wall that we dig out, put steps in, and basically try and make it impossible so that the guys that are hitting it, it's wide open, like full throttle beat downs. It's pretty fun, and the guys around here enjoy it. So I'm really interested to see how the races and things turn out with our southern brothers, and you know, we're gonna tune in and watch you guys, and hopefully be a part of the Mountain Mud Run in May.
That's really good that you mentioned the building of the hills and making them darn near impossible. I build my hills for 2.2 tires. The max size is 6 inches in our classes. Okay, so you can absolutely show up with 1.9s, 1.55s, like you mentioned, but I tell you, you know, you're not going to have an easy go at it, and that's fine too. You know, we want to welcome everybody to our races, just like you are. You know, but I tell you, if you're gonna be competitive, you're gonna need, you know, the bigger tire sizes, because just like you said, you know, I'm gonna be building those hills, so they're almost impossible. At Windrock Hill 1, nobody even climbed it. So, do I, you know, get any satisfaction from that? No, no, absolutely not. I don't build it to, you know, to be a jerk or whatever. But that's rock bouncing. You know, when Clyde Bynum goes to a park, he looks at the hills and picks out the gnarliest, nastiest hills that he can, and some of them are man-made. You know, but he doesn't look at that hill and say, "Oh, you know, that's easy enough. I want everybody to make it." Blah blah blah. No, man, no. That's just not what happens in the real world, the one-to-one world, and it ain't gonna happen in the RC world too. So, just so a warning, I guess. You know, if you're coming to the hills, you see the hills laid out in front of you for the races, and you think that your 1.55s or 1.9s or whatever aren't gonna make it. You know, don't come complaining to me, man, because it ain't gonna get you anywhere. So. That's really good that you mentioned that, Sam. Thank you. So since we're on the topic of racing and building chassis and stuff like that, what is your recommendation for newbies, new guys that are, you know, and I say newbie loosely because RC rock bouncing, organized RC rock bouncer racing, is very new, and unless it's going on somewhere that I haven't found on the internet, you know, not a lot of people are going to know a lot about it. So what are you going to tell somebody that comes to you and says, "I want to race in an RC rock bouncer race"?
New builders. I mean, I was a new builder at once. I mean, no offense to the guys that are building chassis and stuff like that, but when I first got into it, um, it was expensive. I mean, no doubt, $500-600 and American at that. So with our conversion, it's almost $1,000 a chassis. So it's hard for me, especially where I'm never satisfied with my chassis. I run them for a few months and then I start nitpicking things and, well, I should have did this or I should have did that or next time I'm going to do this. So for me, building a chassis every winter, it's hard for me to go and rely on somebody to do that for me, and then me not be happy with it or it not work. The other thing too, is I wanted from the beginning to do a front motor mount setup. Not to bash on the Wraith skid platform, but in terms of hill killing, weight distribution, things like that, to me it just didn't make sense. I wanted to have my motor up front, keep all that nice heavy weight up front planted, and I mean, when I bought all my setup, I didn't even have the chassis built. I bought my axles, I bought my motor, I bought my transmission, transfer case, all that stuff, and then built my chassis around it. And it was just because, like I said, I wanted to do it like a real rig. The motor's in the front. That's where the motors are at in 90% of the bouncers that are in competition. So, so I'd say for new builders, just, you know, it costs about $100 to go and buy, you know, a coil of brake line, your torches, your solders, all that stuff. And I mean, a coil of brake line, you could build 5 chassis and throw them all out if you don't like them, and you're not really losing money. So that's kind of my advice to you guys, is just go do it. Just go and build one, and you're within your second or third one, you're going to start getting the hang of it, and it's going to become easier than what you thought. So that's what I just do it.
Absolutely, Sam. Get out there and do it. Just try it. Stop saying, "Well, I don't know. You know, I don't know what design I want to do." Man, just do it. A roll of brake line, like you said, will build a bunch of chassis. I don't know about roll. Me personally, I like the straight line, straight brake lines that you can buy. Still fairly cheap, and it doesn't take a lot. Maybe 1 or 2 sticks. Um, but I can't express enough how important it is to just jump in, you know. And again, like Sam said, it doesn't cost a lot of money. You don't need a welder. You can buy most of the stuff that you need at Home Depot or Lowe's. The brake line you can buy at any parts store, AutoZone. I usually get it at AutoZone, I think. One thing that you did leave out, Sam, depending on what brake line you do buy, make sure that you grind off that protective coating that comes on there, because your solder will not stick to that at all. So just keep that in mind. Let's keep this rolling. You just told me, you just gave some advice to newbies. What's your advice to racers?
So my advice to the racers and is, you know, it's different. It's different than trail running. I see a lot of guys talking scale, which I personally have nothing against. I came from the scale background, but I learned quick that when you're trying to climb stuff and you're trying to go over obstacles, having jerry cans, scale ramps, scale accessories bolted to the top of your Jeep just don't work. And I mean, I've never had a real rig, but I can assume it's the exact same thing. So I mean, if that's what you're about and you want to make your bouncer model after a real bouncer 100%, give her. I get just as much joy watching someone build a rig 100% look-alike. But you also got to understand, when it comes to racing, that stuff isn't necessarily going to help you. So that's the two different things. It's two vast worlds. I mean, the term scale in our hobby is as vast as the hobby is. You're never going to be 100% scale. The parts just aren't there for it. And it's everybody's different. Everybody wants to either make a full-on race rig, or they want to make a bouncer that looks cool. So there's a happy medium, but personally, with my race rigs, it's truly function over fashion. And I mean, you know, guys can contest. That's how it's built, and it works. So this year will be the first year that I'll be competing in our event here. Just because before there's some haters, I guess, conflict of interest for me holding the event plus competing. They just weren't happy, I guess, with me winning. So I stepped back for the last 2-3 years and just let the boys have fun. But it's hard to build full-on race rigs and then not race them. So this year I'm coming back, and it should be fun.
Good advice. Very good, Sam. So let's wrap it up with kind of leading in that direction. What's next for RC Faboratory? What do you have in the works? Where are y'all going to be racing at? Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
This year, well, this is my newest chassis for this year. I also recently just sold one of my old chassis for like trailing and just going out with the boys and having fun. So I got a 1.9 bouncer in the works. Not really sure of what I'm going to do with that yet. Definitely going trailing arm, and probably keep that like just fairly basic, cheap, easy parts to work on. Nothing too crazy.
Thank you very much, Sam. I'm definitely going to be following your trail rig. I have preached a lot about having a race rig and having a trail rig to, beat down on. And I think we can take a lesson from Timmy Cameron, who in 2017 built, he was racing Unfinished Business, but then he built a trail rig that he dubbed, what did he call it? Plum Buck, okay, which Sam Carter's racing now. But anyway, the reason why he built Plum Buck was to duplicate what he races with. And so when he goes out in the trail, he's literally getting seat time, almost the same seat time that he would be getting in his race rig. So I think that it's important to note that the smart people in our sport or hobby, whatever you want to call it, are duplicating what they have in their race rig and putting it out on the trail to get more seat time. And can you bring your race rig out there for seat time? Absolutely, man. Come on. But let's be honest. Parts are expensive, and if you're out there and you break the trail rig and you don't have money to fix it right away, but you got a race coming up, well, guess what? You still be able to go and race. So. Great advice, Sam. Definitely going to be following that, and definitely going to be talking you out of running 1.9s. All right, let's wrap it up here. Sam, thank you so much for your time, your effort, everything that you put into this on behalf of all the viewers, all the other drivers and stuff. We all are very grateful for your sacrifices today. So thank you very much for that. As far as RC Command, we are still unpacking. There's a load of boxes that are out in the garage and up here in the office, so I'm slowly digging out from that. We got to get the shop set up. So a lot of things coming, and also the race season doesn't stop just because I'm moving. So just got back from Wind Rock, and we're going to be heading to Wildcat in Kentucky for the first race of the season for the Northern Rock Racing Association series, Northern Rock Racing Series. So we hit the first race was a Central race in Texas. Wind Rock was the first race for the Southern Rock Racing Series, and then we're heading up to Wildcat to kick off the Northern Rock Racing Series in about 3 weeks. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions for myself, if you have any questions for Sam, please leave them in the comments below. We do appreciate you tuning in. I know this is a little long-winded, but I love the geeking out, man. This stuff is great. Man, I can't wait to find some more drivers who are willing to commit, who are fully committed like my friend Sam here. So thank you all very much. RC Command leads the way.